It's time to tear into the rust. I've taken the triangular lower support bracket off, marked where I'm going to cut the B pillar off there. I will mark the A pillar. There, see, I've marked both pillars. Drilled out a bunch of spot welds. The object here is to take the lower portion of these pillars off. While they do need a little repair, more importantly, I need them off so that I can get access to the inner and outer rocker and floor pan and stitch all of it together. Both of those pillars are a very high strength point for the chassis, and the closer I can keep things in their original shape, the easier it will be for me to stitch everything back together. I use a combination of 1/4 inch drill bit and an actual spot weld cutter, and of course I've got a thick chisel that the blade goes all the way through the handle, which makes a good tool to shear the remaining portion of the spot weld off. I use an air-powered hacksaw to make the straight cuts, and I try to sneak up on everything. A lot of it I try to cut most of the way through, leave just a tiny little bit that I hope will snap off when I use the chisel. That way I don't distort or cut the panel that I'm trying to save that it butts up against. Now I get my most favorite tool out. This is what the plasma cutter is made for, at least as far as body work. It gets in there, cuts the panel out, no heat distortion to the adjacent panels. It's just a fun tool to use. It does a lot of work in a hurry. Nice thing about it is the part I'm cutting out here is actually brazed together from the factory. And a lot of people poof-all brass, but it actually makes a very strong weld with sheet metal in a non-shear situation, because it spreads out and creeps under like solder. And to cut it out any other way is really difficult. Plasma cutter slices right through it. As far as it's concerned, it could be steel. And here I have the outer panel out. We'll need a little more trimming, a little bit of repair, but it's out of the road. And here you can see the reason for cutting it off. That is the end junction of the inner and the outer rocker, which is covered by the B pillar. More or less the same process here. Drill some more, get the saw. I am blocking the view a little bit. There's really not a lot to see. Now everything is nearly cut off. Delicately trying to pop the spot welds. As I said, on the B pillar, the less distortion I can put into this, the easier it is to put back into place, and the more assurance as things fit up that they are where they need to be. There's only a hacksaw blade width that I've removed, so if the shape is there and I put the new panels in and something seems out of place, I will tend to trust what this panel is doing more than the reproductions. Here I'm having a little difficulty trying to get in there and recut, because as I cut things loose, the gap that the hacksaw had left closed up. This is due to the stress on the chassis. While it is supported, there are vast distances across the rocker panel there where there isn't any support, and it shifted. I expected it, and I will deal with it later. Back to my favorite tool. It's even fun to watch. Having successfully cut, sliced, drilled, and chiseled all the attaching points, the bottom comes off. Trimming away the rusted portions of the inner and outer rockers to get them out of the way, so that these are the little things that you kind of have to notice as you cut the car apart. While I have it braced in several directions, when I was cutting the bottom of the A-pillar off, I noticed that my saw gap had closed up, so I knew that it was under stress. So as I cut it off here, now it's dropped down a little, as you can see here. But when I weld this back in, I will need to raise this post an eighth of an inch, maybe a fat eighth of an inch, so that this will be more in line with what it is. This is something that you will chase forever in trying to align things. By this being down, the door post will be laying back. You try to raise the door up, the rear fender lines won't match, and it's probably cocked a little bit also. So just by raising that post an eighth to 3/16 of an inch before I weld everything in, I will have a much better alignment with the doors and the rockers. Whereas if I don't do it, it won't line up, and I really won't know why. And here I've trimmed this off Looks like I'm going to attempt to make this lower foot panel. I've never beat anything out in a buck before, but I've made a buck. I'll make a few samples, try to get it to fit. I'm sure it won't be as good as a factory stamped panel, but it'll be close enough that I think it will serve their purpose quite well. As you can see, the bottom here is quite rotted away. However, as it gets into the structure up here in the post, all that's good and solid. We have new replacement inner and outer rockers. Obviously a new floor pan. I make this piece and it'll all be done. All I have to do is finish it.